Hello and welcome to the channel, I'm Jay, and I had something different planned for this week's video, but I've pivoted. We had some big news in the week from the Halo Studios, or the new Halo Studios, all about the future of Halo, and I thought that should absolutely be the topic of conversation for this week's video. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that update was, and why I think this is potentially a very good move for the Halo series. So let's jump into what the content was all about, what the updates are, and then we'll see at the end whether you agree with my views on the future of the Halo series. And this video, which I'll play in the background while I'm talking, is directly from Halo Studios, or the new Halo Studios. Now, this is the former 343 Industries studio that has been developing Halo ever since Bungie left the series. So they are rebranding essentially. It's not a brand new studio, but I'll let this play out in the background while I'm talking. Now, one of the things that you'll see instantly, as I said, is the brand new naming. This is pretty consistent with what Microsoft have been doing recently with their studios. Think back as far as the Coalition, rebranding to sort of focus solely on Gears of War. So Halo Studios now doubling down on their efforts to be a Halo house. And they are promising, as part of these updates, multiple Halo titles being in the works. Now, what's really interesting, I think, here is, and you'll see it in the intro, is they're very much focusing on the legacy of Halo. And perhaps when Halo was last considered to be really good, which I think for most people is probably a toss-up between Halo 3 and Halo Reach. And in this video, they talk a lot about reflecting on what it means, or what Halo means as a franchise, and how they get back to those roots. They're not being overly dismissive of more recent titles, but I think accepting that maybe under 343, they haven't necessarily achieved what Halo fans really wanted. Now, there's a couple of changes that are coming here. It's not just a studio rebrand. There is one big change, which I think is probably the most interesting talking point, and you're seeing it on screen now in the captions, which is the Halo Studios will be pivoting from their formerly proprietary development engine called Slipspace, which was used on Halo Infinite, to something much more common in the gaming industry and more widely available and generally more popular, I think, which is Unreal Engine 5 for all future developments of Halo titles. Now, I think in reality, the Slipspace engine had been a point of difficulty for the studio, especially during the troubled development of Halo Infinite, where those outdated tools caused all sorts of delays and performance issues. And really, Halo Infinite to this day is a fraction of what I think most gamers wanted it to be. I talked about it in my most recent Halo video, which I'll link below if you've not seen it, where I tried to decide which I thought for me was the best Halo title. I won't spoil that for you. Go check it out to see which one I ultimately landed on. But you're seeing now on screen some of these amazing visuals. I mean, look how pretty those biomes are. So Unreal Engine 5 is expected to streamline the development process and improve the overall quality of the games. And it's going to allow the teams to focus on creating content rather than maintaining these internal tools. And that's really interesting because, of course, as they want to change and evolve, they're not able to, the developers aren't able just to do that with the gaming engine. They're relying solely on themselves to update that proprietary technology and to make sure that their Slipspace engine, as it was, could cope with those changes, which puts a hell of a lot of strain on one development house or one group of developers. But I think this is a really interesting move to Unreal Engine 5. Now, these changes were first announced at the 2024 Halo World Championships, and the studio showcased these visuals you're seeing now, which they've codenamed Project Foundry. Now, it isn't a fully announced game, so this isn't a brand new Halo they're announcing here. What they're showing is what was effectively an R&D project. It's a proof of concept to see what could be achieved in the engine and whether they could capture that Halo look and feel. And you can see they're talking about it now. They looked at 3 different biomes as part of that challenge. There was the kind of classic, how would you describe it? Waterfalls, Rockies, the foliage, the greenery, the sort of lush environments that we've gotten used to that basically Halo Infinite was almost exclusively based around. Then they were showing those snowy scenes where there's ice and snow and wind and kind of very different climate to work with. And then the last one is, basically a biome fully taken over by the flood. So they've sort of practiced or demonstrated their abilities, if you like, to create worlds that we know from Halo in the brand new engine. I mean, this, as you're seeing right now, just looks incredible, absolutely incredible. So really impressive. It is a tech demo, so don't get too excited. It's not a game at this point, but really, really interesting to see what they're doing. There's also some leadership changes gone on. So studio head Pierre Hintze, I'm sorry, I've probably butchered that completely, but he's leading the charge now, and he's described the studio's transformation as part of a new era for the franchise. For following the original Bungie era, the 343 tenure, they are treating this like a brand new studio. And by all accounts, there's also quite a lot of recruitment going on to bring a new team in, which is probably going to be required because to move to Unreal Engine 5, they're going to need to bring in talent that knows how to work with that system. I'm sure they've got that in-house already to some degree, but it's going to be allowing them to leverage the kind of the developer market, if you like, to bring in more talent. Now, the focus is on improving development efficiency. So hopefully by using Unreal Engine 5 as well, they're going to be able to move much more quickly, deal with updates, bring new content, upscale, outsource, etc. So lots of benefits there. And it really is a big new change as far as the Halo franchise is concerned, which I think is fair to say has really struggled in the recent years to recapture what made it so successful during the Xbox 360 era, at least, the first few games on that console. So this rebranding really does reflect kind of Microsoft's commitment to revitalizing the series. At least I think that's what we're supposed to take away from this. And we'll see how we get on. But I wanted to talk about a couple of areas. The first one is the early impressions of what we're seeing. So you've seen a few snapshots already, and they're talking about some of this stuff on screen now. It's a really pretty proof of concept. Especially the mountains, the trees, the forest, the waterfalls. I think that looks absolutely incredible. The snowy environments look great, if not maybe a little bit barren, and the flood, that looks really quite terrifying as far as an environment goes. But visually, the environments look great. I think where I'm a little bit less sold yet, but I'm prepared to give them benefit of the doubt, is the character models. I'm not the only one, I think, that thinks Master Chief looks a little bit maybe chunky, and I'll just stop him right here. You can see here on the footage that we're sharing, he's a bit beefier looking. I think some of the criticism I've seen is that he looks a little bit plastic, maybe a little bit action figure-y, almost like someone has created some sort of a diorama, with him in. Because the environment looks so hyper-realistic that's around him. I can understand why the character model, at least as we're seeing it now, maybe is a little disappointing. I think, though, it's probably fair to say this is far from the final version. This is, as they've said, a proof of concept, an R&D journey. He looks too perfect. He looks too pristine, as did the aliens. So if we just scrub back a little bit, let's try and find that. There was a really good snapshot somewhere in the video. Bear with me. Bit of time checked it. Is it there? Yes. Just scrub through and find. There we go. But even in that look, you can see similarly the high gloss metallic on the aliens' armor. Master Chief's visor is just almost like too pristine. But that's all stuff that can change. That's stuff that no doubt will get improved as development continues. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm sort of not going to lose any sleep over those first impressions. I think what we're supposed to take away from this is an excitement for where this is going, and not to be overly concerned by the quality of these initial visuals. It is just a proof of concept. I guess, though, being on Unreal Engine 5, one of the big value points that they're going to get from this is availability of assets. So there's huge, infinite repositories of Unreal Engine assets available on the net that developers can use, modify, download, buy in. Come to that point, they can also bring in more varied skills and expertise from across the industry, both from that kind of graduate level, people learning this tool, because for those who don't know, Unreal Engine 5 is freely available for educational purposes. It's only when you start making money off the product that you then have to start paying Epic any money for it. So Unreal Engine 5 is going to have a much broader pool of talent that they can recruit from, both at that kind of lower end, where you need to be able to scale up quickly and bring in development talent to kind of get a project moving, but also at a more senior level, there'll be much more in that kind of experience space of people that know how to navigate this tool, what kind of project timelines look like, and we won't see the delay after delay after delay, hopefully, that we saw with previous Halo titles, and especially with Halo Infinite. You'll also be able to outsource more easily, which is, sounds silly, but from a business perspective, if you want to be able to flex your resource, actually be able to send work outside of your organization to get things done, perhaps some of that grunt work, perhaps some of that legwork. Let's say you need 200 different trees. You can outsource that to an agency, get them to do that. There'll be a much wider talent pool there. You don't have to educate people on that proprietary tool. They can just give them the instructions and let them do it in the in an Unreal environment that they already know and theoretically love. I would liken it to in the IT world, which is kind of my background, the kind of buy versus build argument. It's great to build your own tech, build your own platforms, because you can have exactly what you want. And that's perfect. You can bespoke it down to the nth degree. But the problem with that then is you've got to support it. And that means you've got to have then an appropriate team of skilled individuals at whatever that cost might look like, focusing on that. And you're never going to be able to keep up with the likes of Epic, who are surging ahead, with the Unreal Engine. This is so widely adopted and so widely supported. Why would you not buy off the shelf and work within that environment? Not only are you going to benefit from everything that the Unreal Engine development path looks like, that roadmap of updates over the years to come, but like we've already mentioned, you can bring in talent much more easily. You're leaving somebody else to worry about developing the product, and you're just worrying about developing the game, which I think in this instance is so important, because Halo as a franchise is massive. But it's really lost its way in the last few years, and I think that player base has probably thoroughly dropped off. People like me, in my age, are very nostalgic for Halo and what it means. But by today's standards, it's eclipsed by a lot of the sort of free-to-play shooters. I'm not going to say Fortnite necessarily, but it's a solid argument that the Fortnites of this world, the Apex Legends, things like that have, and Call of Duty, of course, continue to eat Halo's lunch. So if Halo wants to take that place back at the top of the pile and become the FPS that we all know and love, and the multiplayer experience with that compelling campaign and all the sci-fi stuff that we love, they've got to be able to focus on that experience and not have to worry about building a technology platform to underpin that and then bug fixing that when it doesn't work. So for me, I think it's a really solid move. I don't think the naming of the studio makes all that much difference, but again, if it helps them from an identity perspective to really buy into that kind of fresh start, that new beginning, then all power to them. But for me, I think what's most exciting here is that we may well go back to, or have an opportunity to see once again, a truly epic Halo game, because it's been too long. It's been really too long. So for me, a very, very exciting development. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time this week talking about it. But I think, from what we've seen so far, it's a really great start. I'll put a link to this video down in the comments in case for some reason you haven't seen it or you want to watch it, and just concentrate on what they have to say and not listen to my ramblings. But yeah, I'm really excited. And as I said, I'm just going to come back to those early visuals again, just because I think they're so interesting to look at. I just want one of the main biome. Where is it? Here we go. So let's look at this bit and just marvel at it. Really, I mean, look at that. It's stunning, absolutely brilliant. Oh, I didn't go back as far as I thought I'd gone. But anyway, I've rambled long enough. So as I said, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments. Are you excited about this change? Were you invested in Halo in the early days? I know from the reaction I got to my Halo video just a couple of weeks ago that there's lots of Halo fans, certainly in my community. So love to hear your thoughts on this. How did you feel about the Master Chief? Did it bother you? Are you confident that it will look right in the end? I think I am, but maybe I'm just being optimistic. Personally for me, I think it's a really solid move. Unreal Engine is top notch, and I'll just do a very quick call out actually. If you haven't seen my Are You Ready for a Ready Player One future video, this was going back months now, but I talked about something that was relatively hot on the scene at the time but has become mainstream now for a lot of VR enthusiasts, which is a product called the UE VR Injector. And basically what it is a mod that's been created that allows you to basically insert this code into any Unreal Engine game, and 9 times out of 10 then be able to play that experience in VR with a relatively limited amount of config required. Because this is going to be an Unreal Engine, I'm sure there are lots of VR enthusiasts who are also super excited about this development. So it'd be amazing to watch some of my kind of favourite VR YouTubers like Beardo Benjo or Gamertag VR diving into a brand new Halo experience completely in VR. I can imagine that would be mind-blowing, especially with those top-notch, top-of-the-line crisp visuals and that sort of visual fidelity, the detail that's going to go into these environments. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I won't ramble on any longer. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you haven't, please like and subscribe, support the channel, share it with others that you do think find this content interesting as well. And I'll leave it here for today. Don't worry, this week's video is going to be coming in the future. It's going to be a retro quest on a Mega Drive title called Zool, for those who remember it, so keep an eye out for that in a few weeks' time. But for now, I'll leave you here and I'll see you in the next video.